Good evening, everyone. Welcome to PBR Monday, Hot Stove League number 3. We will give the room a few minutes to populate, as we always do. Again, please make sure that you follow the directions that StreamYard gives you about using your Facebook credentials. If you're watching on YouTube, there's not a lot we can do. But if you're watching on Facebook, there's a way that you can provide StreamYard with your credentials so that when you post a comment, I know who you are. If you're having some trouble with that, you're always welcome to sign your comment. Just, put a hyphen in your name behind it or something like that so we know who you are, because it's when I just see anonymous Facebook users, sometimes I go past those. But if I see a name attached to it, it's a lot more likely to come up as a question that I'll post for either myself or our guests. So I'm seeing 7 o'clock here. I'm going to get right into it because I want to get to our guests as soon as possible tonight, because I'm really excited to be able to talk to these two fellas and grateful that they took the time to join us. Several of you have noticed that on social media the past couple of days, I've posted some photos of myself out in the desert in my Jeep with my kids, poking around out there looking at some stuff. Hey, AB, thanks for signing in. I have been out there working on some day 2 stuff, and I'm really excited about it. Dwayne, yesterday I think you posted something about my hip must be feeling good if I'm out bouncing around the desert in my Jeep. It actually didn't feel that good after a whole day bouncing around. I'm going to have to wait a while before I go back out there again, but I'm going to spend most of the winter and the spring exploring some stuff in the desert. And one of the things that I'm going to do this year that's a little bit different is I'm going to give you all of the navigation for the tour, like I always do, sometime before the middle of March. So you're going to have 4 full months to examine the navigation, except for one section. On day 2, between American Falls and Big Southern Butte, I'm going to withhold most of that until I see you at the flagpole, or until you make it to Pocatello. So if you make it to Pocatello, I'm going to give you the navigation for that section. If for some reason we can't hook up in person at the flagpole, I'll email it or text it to you or do something like that. But I want to do as much as I can this year to put a dagger in the heart of this notion that instead of studying maps and looking at the terrain and trying to consider alternatives, there's way too many teams that get zeroed in on, well, I'll make my own track because that's within the rules, but I'm going to follow that track. And last year that led to disaster. One of the disasters it led to was for our guests tonight, at least in my opinion. They can tell you what they think about that ourselves. It's way better for Tour of Idaho style riding if you just learn to navigate from waypoint to waypoint, because in 90% of the time, the underlying data that you use to create those tracks is probably going to be just fine. But the 10% of the time it's not, you're really going to be knackered. And team after team last year came up on something where the track that they had created using underlying data or the track that they'd gotten from someplace else didn't match reality. And that's when things start to go wrong. If Armadillo last year had not had the problem they had in Powder Gulch, it would have been the team after them, or it would have been the team after them, or the team after them. Last year, there was exactly one team that I know about that did not create their own tracks from my waypoints. There was one team that navigated from waypoint to waypoint. That was our guest last week, Hillbilly. That's because Kent is the GIS specialist for the entire state of Kentucky. He understands what I'm talking about when I say typically the underlying data for things like trails is no good. For an interstate highway, it's fine. But for things like single track trails, frequently it is not. The data is an error. Most of the time it's good, but some of the time it's not. And that some of the time is enough to knacker you on the tour. So you're much better off studying aerial photos, studying the surface maps, and navigating along what should be a fairly obvious trail from one waypoint to the other. When it's not, I usually place the waypoints close together. So to encourage everybody to do that, I'm going to give you a section when you get to Pocatello this year. So if you make it through day 1, when I see you at the flagpole, I'm going to hand you the middle part of day 2 at that point. And it might not all be waypoints either. It might actually be some rally style navigation where you have to go so many miles along this compass bearing, so many meters, so many yards along this compass bearing, turn left, right, north, south, east, or west. There's going to be a little component in it that's going to force you to deal with actual navigation instead of just trying to follow a line on your GPS. I am not doing this to punish anybody, to make the bar higher or anything else like that. The bar's high enough as it is. But what I want you to do is I want you to study things the right way. I'm actually trying to increase your odds of success because I don't want to see anything like what happened to our guest tonight happen to you. This team Armadillo, these two guys, David Squared, showed up here last summer and they were ruthlessly prepared. They've done an excellent job. Now, I think there's probably some things that they'll do differently this year because you learn by experience. And again, the Tour of Idaho is the kind of thing that there's no template for it. So everybody inevitably superimposes some of their own experience over the tour, and they try to go from that to what they think they're in for. And there's always a few bumps along the way in that process. But nonetheless, David did an outstanding job in preparation. When I met these guys, I said, they're going to make it. And they probably would have made it too, except they got knackered in Powder Gulch. And I'm going to let them tell the story, but these are good guys. I think what they have to say may be one of the most valuable things that you hear all winter long in this series, because here's some guys that came up from Texas, were pretty well prepared, and got nailed by a fairly minor navigational issue. It was heartbreaking to watch. And all of us who watched the tour came away from this going, oh, man, it's the kind of thing that sucks. I don't want that to happen to anybody this year. I would prefer everybody that put in the amount of work that these guys put in. I'd like to see you finish. I'd like to see you end up at Sundance and get a jersey number. So hopefully the things that I'm going to do and some more things that you're going to hear over the winter will convince you to wrap your mind around our particular method of navigation. Again, we're not trying to make you walk uphill both ways through 6 feet of snow carrying a horse on your back. It's because it's necessary to get you through this. And people who navigate by our method tend to be more successful than people who don't. So I'll get that we'll talk a little bit more about navigation this year down the road. By the way, I've been getting questions already about rules for 2021 and trails for 2021. I think I might even gotten a question from our guest tonight. I don't have the 2021 route out yet. Let's hold questions about the 2021 route until I publish it. And the reason for that is the changes that I've said I anticipate coming, or the changes I anticipate, I don't know what I'm actually going to change until I actually sit down and look at the route, look up all the trails this year, see what's been changed, go through the state, the IDPR maps and stuff like that. There's a lot of work that I have to do. It takes several months to go through all of that before I start planning the tour for the next year. I have an idea of what I'm going to do right now, and I know what I'd like to do, but what I'd like to do may not correspond to reality on the ground, and I have to check that reality on the ground first. So I'm going to know about the trails and the rules and stuff about March next year. Once I get the route out, then you can sit down, you can fire away with these questions about the 2021 route and what exactly the challenge point rules are. Many years of bitter experience have taught me that if I try to answer those questions right now, I might mislead you because I might make a change later that invalidates the response that I've given you. So be patient with me. All right, let me see if I've got anything here. I see a whole, oh, hey there, guys. Craig, how you doing, Craig? Go ahead and map the 2020 route. As practice, it will be a huge help for 2021. I completely agree with that. Just bear in mind that you're going to have more work to do once I release the 2021 route out. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring in our guest for the evening. We got Team Armadillo down there in Texas. Now, these guys, I think, are a little nervous about being here in the big time on this show that typically has, I don't know, 15 or 20 people watching it. They may have a case of the nerves. So you guys, tell me about what the weather's like in Texas right now, and tell me why we should all want to go to Texas.
The weather's good now. It's about 50 degrees in the morning, 70s in the afternoon. I mean, it's been really good. I mean, it rained last week, a few days last week, but other than that, it's been really nice. This is a good time.
it's one of the few places you can live and actually ride your dirt bike year round.
That's right.
I mean, there's some cold fronts that come in, but typically you can ride year round. So that's a good thing.
You guys race year round pretty much too, it looks like to me, don't you?
We do. There's a summer series. There used to be a winter series. It kind of dried up a year or two ago. But I mean, we basically raced every other weekend all year long if you wanted to.
All
Yeah, like
right.
in November, there's basically a race every weekend. I mean, November's a busy month.
It's our good time of the spring and the fall. It's a busy race schedule down here. So and that's where we have to go to ride. I mean, it's there's only a few public riding venues, so you're kind of forced into the going racing thing if you want to ride a dirt bike. So
that's the only thing. A lot of guys that ride in Texas really like it down there for all the reasons you've just said. But the one thing everybody says is the thing that sucks is there's no public land that you can ride on. There's public land in Texas, but it tends to be national parks, national monuments, and stuff like that are dirt bike unfriendly. So the racing scene, I guess, down there is important because it provides you with a place you can ride that otherwise you might not be able to find. Is that right?
Absolutely. That's exactly why I started racing in the first place. The three or four private privately owned public riding areas. You can only go so many times, and you need a new trail to ride. So the racing does supply that. So.
Well, let's get down to it. Let's talk Tour of Idaho 2020. So, as I mentioned in the opening remarks, when you guys showed up here last year, I talked to you a little bit before you got here. And I developed a little bit of a feel for teams before I've met them, but when I meet them at the flagpole, that's when I really start to develop an idea about. I think these folks have got what it takes. I think they've worked all this out. I think they understand what they're getting into or not. And when I met you guys at the flagpole, I mean, I was sure that you guys, barring some catastrophe, had the goods to make it. And it looked to me like your day one was butter. You got through day 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you got to day 6, and it looked like you were dispatching that pretty quickly, but the wheels kind of fell off there. So why don't you take us through first how you found out about the tour, what you did leading up to actually getting here, and then tell us about your first 6 days of the Tour of Idaho, how you prepared for it, what you thought about it, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I want to say I'm not sure where I'd kind of gotten into the, some of the backcountry discovery routes, and I was probably just typing in, different riding or different type of events, and ended up on the Tour of Idaho. I think the Moto Jazz page, and just kind of looked at that, and I don't know if I think I might have seen Jimmy Lewis's video, and then I kind of started trying to talk to anybody else that was as crazy as I was that wanted to ride for 10 days and 2,000 miles. So I finally found my victim, and Patch was it. So, we started talking about it, and it didn't take long before we had pretty much committed. We were ready to go. Or so we thought anyway.
Yeah, when we started that thing, we'd missed out on getting to watch the previous season. So, we kind of had to learn real quick I didn't know how to approach, we didn't know how to approach it at the beginning, the nav, figuring it out, where to start. So, we did end up making tracks for our tour because it was the only way I could figure out at the time how to start piecing the route, and it kind of forces you to, zooming in and looking at the trail. So we did make our route or tracks for our route, but we knew we knew what they were, that we that we couldn't rely on the track. But the way we approached it at that time was, at least it provides, all of that I went through. We went through and verified, Google Earth, every area that you could. So most of those tracks up to the day 6 Powder Gulch area had pretty much been verified, either by map or by Google Earth. But, obviously there's some areas that you can't verify because of trees and whatever the angle of the satellite. So some of that stuff, you're at a guess. And
35 feet can be a long way in dense foliage, can it? Yeah.
I was going to say, I ran, so like you said, we made tracks. I ran tracks on one of the GPSs, but I ran just the waypoints on the Trail Tech. So I had a screen of each trying to back check, that, but obviously it still backfired on us. The only section it didn't work on was Powder Gulch.
Yeah, everything works until it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. And
there's a secondary reason that the tracks were nice too. And when you wear bifocals, when I ride, I've only got one eye. I don't even know if you know that. I only got one eye, and I wear bifocals. So, riding a motorcycle, I got to wear goggles. So, you wear a contact lens, and I don't know if you've wore contact lenses and tried to bifocal, but it's really hard to see them little bitty numbers on that screen.
You can make them bigger on the Trail Tech.
I got you. So that's another reason we made tracks. But anyway, I guess you were asking us to kind of explain our days leading up to our demise.
Tell me about what you thought about. So you drive all the way up from Texas, you get to Malad. You're pretty pumped. You guys were smart enough to understand that day one is kind of a screening day. You got going pretty early in the morning. So tell us what you thought about day one while you were out there.
Day one was good. It's a long day, and you're kind of working off adrenaline at that point because you're so excited to get started. Literally, I think we got up at, 2:30, 3 o'clock. It was early. We couldn't sleep. So finally, we're just like, we might as well go get started. So obviously, we got a really early start. And, most of the riding wasn't overly difficult. Just it's long. Nothing too crazy. But
there's a lot of it.
There's a lot of it. And it's hard to prepare for that much riding.
You guys rode more on day one than a lot of people ride, more single track on day one than a lot of people who ride a lot ride an entire season. It's 225 miles, and a big chunk of that is either single track or pretty technical 2-track.
Well, and that's what I tell people, try to get them to understand. Our races right now are only about 35 miles long when we race. And I said, we raced more than half a season in one day. It's just hard for some people to put that in perspective, how much riding it is. And you're on the bike.
I don't remember what time you guys got here, but I remember it was a fairly reasonable time of day, if I recall correctly.
8:30 p.m.
Yeah,
8:30. So that's a really good time. You get here, that's well before dark. You got started, 3, 4 in the morning or something like that. So that's a pretty good average time for day one. So you roll in. What'd you think at the end of day one?
Well, that's where we were, we spent, roughly at least an hour. If you remember, we kind of messed up on that checkpoint. We were looking for the waypoint, and it was kind of across the road, which we never picked up on. So we spent a good portion looking for that. So, but at the end of the day, it was, it was good riding, and we sure were glad to see the flagpole go. That's for sure.
So you guys, you took your day off in Pocatello, and did you come up here? Were your bikes up on my lift for some maintenance? There were so many teams that came through last summer. I forget who did what, but I remember we talked some that day, but I don't remember if you did some bike work here or not.
Nah, we met you for breakfast, and then we come up and did the PBR interview. We didn't. Our bikes were pretty well in check. I think we did a clutch adjustment after Robert's roost. We might have had to tweak on our recluses a little bit and bled his brakes, and we did that at the motel. But Well, I guess we can save that for the prep, but for next year, we'll be doing a little more maintenance in Pocatello down at the shop.
Yeah.
So, okay. So tell us about day 2 through day 5.
You're day 2 guy.
Yeah, I'm the day 2 guy. We went into day 2 thinking it was just going to be a beatdown. That all we had heard about was desert, and it was 100 degrees, and we pretty much hit the jackpot on the weather because we were in jackets when we hit the desert. It was cool temperatures, no sun. We probably couldn't have gotten a better day out there. It was just we started out in the woods. It was dark. A little bit of rain, but
the trails on day 2 leading up to the American Falls, we were
having a great time.
Pleasantly surprised how good those trails were fun.
Yeah.
That's some nice stuff.
Yeah, no, it was great. And then we got out after American Falls. Of course, you get into the desert section, but the day didn't really get long till I think we hit the lava sections where it just, the butte just kept moving. It just never. I was like, for the love of God, did this thing come? Can we get there? But
yeah, then it seemed like all of a sudden it just poof, it was there. You'd see it in the distance, and then it would disappear again, and then all of a sudden, boom, it was there, and that was a happy moment. I
want to say it was 49 degrees up there.
It was cold.
It was cold up on top.
Yeah. You guys, you did jackpot the weather. The funny thing about Big Southern Butte is your experience is a famous one along the tour because the lava fields out there are not flat. There's some relief in there. So when you go down to those dips, the butte disappears. And you ride forever, and you come out the other side, you're expecting the thing to be a lot closer. And sometimes the damn thing looks like it's even farther away than it was 10 miles further to the south. That thing never looks like it's getting closer until you come out of that last dip where you can basically see the road that goes around the butte. That's the only time it ever looks closer to me, and I've done it 20 or 30 times.
Yeah, no, it's one of those illusions out there.
Yeah, day 2, it's 270 miles, and it took us 15 hours that day.
Yeah.
It'll take you longer next year.
Perfect.
All right, so you guys got the Arco, and tell us about day 3.
Yeah, so day 3, Arco to the Smoky Bar store. It was 195 miles for us, and it took us about 12 hours.
Yeah.
It was a perfect weather day. You take off out of Arco, and it's mostly Jeep road and stuff for a good bit, and then you climb up to one of the first fire lookouts that you get to on the tour, and then after that, things start getting good. I think the first trail after that's the Burnt Aspen Trail, and that's the start of the good stuff in my opinion. So we had a good time on day 3. Really didn't have anything. We talked about the day 3 bonus section. Didn't look that long. Considered it, but with day 2 being a 15-hour day, we were really looking forward to getting to the Smoky Bar store and seeing, a lot of good things have been said about that place. So we decided to press on, and I'm glad we did. But we were all the trails after Ketchum to Smoky Bar. They were fun, good trails. It's kind of a drier area, but the trails were really good, and they kind of follow along the top, and it just keeps climbing and keeps climbing and keeps climbing. It was really fun. And then we hit the road, and we see a sign that says Smoky Bar store, is up ahead, and we thought we were on a road trip into the Smoky Bar and was pretty excited, but that excitement only lasted very briefly. We had to the tour turned you on to the Big Peak Creek Trail, which again was a good trail. It's just at that point we we were hoping to get there, but we ended up getting to Smoky Bar about 6:30. Neat place. Kaylin is an excellent host. Had dinner waiting for us. The store there, the remoteness of it, you know, the outside shower with the hot water pump and the instant hot
that's
water
pretty cool,
heater.
really.
And, you know, the shed that's been turned into a cabin, you know, with a really nice classy touch. We sat on the back patio there, and some of the fire crew guys that are based down the street were there. You know, you can tell they frequent there every evening and have a couple of beers and talk, and you know, really felt quite at home there. And you know, I was hoping that the tour might get you there a little earlier so you could enjoy that a little bit more.
So wait a minute, let me see if I got this straight. So my understanding is you took my name in vain, because instead of letting you go down the road, Warm Springs Road, 30 some odd miles to Smoky Bar store, I instead took you on Big Peak Trail number 16, one of the finest motorcycle trails on the planet, a trail that is this wide but is buffed to immaculateness by the mountain bikers in the area. Doesn't even have as much as a tree root in it the last time I rode it. It's third, fourth gear single track, which dumps you down a ridge right into Smoky Bar store. Yet you felt compelled to demean my personage because I sent you on that trail instead of the dirt road. Is that what I heard?
You heard that, yes, because I had a blister on my toe and I was not a damn dude. No, the trail.
Isn't it awesome rolling up on Smoky Bar store? I mean, is there a better place than that?
No, it was great.
You know, when we finally accomplish this thing and we load up our riding buddies around here that, you know, aren't quite up to the torture of the tour but want to go check out Idaho, I can see us making arrangements to stay there for a day or two.
That's the whole plan. You know, if Kaylin Dennis ends up being the richest innkeeper on the planet, that makes me nothing but happy. It's an awesome experience to go there, and you guys nailed it. You know, you've had, it's maybe not as long as day one and day two, but you've still had kind of a long day. You come rolling in there, and it's an experience that I think is unique. You don't get anything like that on a BDR anywhere.
No, and she's basically asking us when we want dinner. I mean, it's pretty much cooked and ready to go, and she's like, well, whenever you guys are ready, you know. And I mean that.
Now I will say, you know, and this comes later, you know, what we're going to do different, but I'll give one of them away now. Kaylin's going to be making us breakfast before we leave next time. We turned it down. We'd planned on stopping and getting gas in
Smiley
Creek, and we ate breakfast there, and it was good. But you know, it was an hour. Took us an hour there that, you know, we probably should have planned differently. But anyway, we'll get to that later.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good segue, because day 4 is when things started to pile up a little bit on you. So let's get into that.
When I was going to say, when I get into day 4, I think that's where part of our issues started happening. You know, I mean, it was 208 miles and ended up being an 18-hour day. You know, we made some bad decisions. I mean, I think eating breakfast at Smiley Creek was one, and then I think we took another hour at Sawmill Station for lunch. You know, thinking we had plenty of time, and we ended up doing, you know, we did that first bonus section which was just an out and back, which was, you know, actually a really fun trail. But, you know, then we tried to do that second bonus section, which was definitely not our smartest move. And
it was almost dark.
Yeah, we just didn't use our head enough, and then it was almost dark, and you know, we ended up getting in at midnight, which didn't leave enough time for sleep, and of course made us I won't say made us, but we ended up starting late on day 5, you know, because we wanted some breakfast to kind of get
Well, we didn't get dinner that night.
We didn't get any dinner, so it just I think that was the start. We started getting tired, and then of course day 5 was just a beat down in terms of we were tired and probably our attitudes were not very good on day 5. And we just wanted to get done.
From the text message you were sending me, I can verify that was so.
Yeah, and the problem when you're out there riding, I think, is you don't realize it, right? I mean, you're riding your trails, you're doing everything you're supposed to do, but you don't realize how tired you are.
The fatigue on the tour really creeps up on you, because even though it's hard to get up in the morning, my experience, once you get on the motorcycle, you kind of shake that off and you're kind of pumped every day because you're seeing stuff you've never seen before. The trails are generally pretty cool trails. And it didn't surprise me that you guys went for what you thought was the low-hanging fruit and tried to nag that second bonus section, because you're kind of pumped when you're in those situations. You go, wait, man, these trails have all been kind of cool. And this one sort of parallels the main trail. Maybe I'm in for more fun. It's really hard sometimes to talk yourself back. You almost have to step outside of your own body for a second and say, wait a minute, I got to behave like a HAL 9000 here, and I've got to make the logical decision, which is hard to do when you're getting beat to death.
We actually, that was one of our first, we had some debate over whether to do that. Dave here was, he's getting late, we probably should press on. And I'm like, dude, it parallels the track. I mean, we're probably only going off route like 2 miles, but that trail ended up not being clear, and it was dark, and we spent way too much time bullheaded. We were bullheaded going, we can just get around these down trees. And
I mean, we literally rode up till the trail was blocked. We thought we were in the wrong spot. We rode back down, turned around and rode back up, and still tried to make our way through. When we rode down the first time, we should have just kept on going back down.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, it just put our attitudes, and we got tired.
So you get up. What time did you get going on your day 5?
Our day 5,
it had to be about 7 o'clock or so.
Well, we got in at midnight. We were really worried that the hotel, that nobody was going to be at the hotel, and we hadn't prepaid the motel, which is something, again, we'll save for later, but one of our doing different things. But the next morning, we got there. I think she had already locked the front door, and I think she was. We got in at 11:55, and I'm pretty sure at midnight she was calling. So we squeaked in, and honestly, I don't think we were mentally prepared what to do next, because there wasn't going to be anywhere else to go, and I'm not sure we were quite ready to throw our little bivy sack in the grass. So that's something we've had to wrestle and get our mind right with. But yeah, so day 5, we got up. We were at the restaurant. They opened at 6. We needed breakfast because we didn't get dinner the night before, so we had to stay. We finally got rolling about 7 a.m. Day 5 for us was 140 miles, and it took us about 11 hours to do. Day 5, we were tired, so it wasn't quite as fun of a day as the others were, because we were just so tired. But we made it up to the fire lookout, and then got on the trail. Everything was going good. That West Fork Creek trail, it had some monster trees down all over it, and it had all been sawed. And I just remember we talked about that a fair amount. The amount of work, whoever took care of that trail, it had to take them a while, because we ended up having to
We only one tree.
Yeah, there was one big fresh fall tree that, no silky saw was going to get through. So we ended up, lifting the bikes over. But other than that, I mean, that trail, that could have been doomsday. If that trail hadn't been sawed, there's no way.
I mean, there was just like landmines. It just looked like a landmine of trees out there that had been cut. I mean, it was really kind of cool just riding through the trees. There were so many of them down. But
Brian Horton, Brian DeLinge, and the IDPR crew are the guys that did all that.
I'm pretty sure I made a special post thanking those guys because their work was not unnoticed. I assure you. So then we got up to the Van Horn Peak, Woods Peak area, and I had made notes. I'd watched all the PBRs, and every time I'd hear a hint, sometimes there's little messages that aren't just thrown out there. You have to grab them. And I'd made some notes, and I'd actually put a waypoint in our thing to not go off the cliff, look for the trail on the left. We still went blowing by the trail on the left, and we ended up on the cliff. And it's funny, there was a tree laying over in the trail right before the edge of that cliff. And, at first we're like, well, that must have just fell there, Let's go around it.
Yeah, we go around it.
And then we get on the other side of it, and I'm looking back at that tree, and I'm like, we're on a rock. There's no tree here. Somebody dragged that son of a bitch. And, excuse me, somebody dragged that thing over here to keep idiots like us from going off the cliff. So, we finally seen the waypoint on the GPS. We went back, and, that's another one of them tricky over the back left shoulder turns that's kind of tricky. There's a few of them. That's where you're study.
But I seriously think, just being tired that day. I mean, that tree laying across the trail basically tells you to turn left. I mean, you're not going right because you're going to go off the cliff. So if you look left, the trail is there. But I just think we were so mentally exhausted that, we just thought it was another tree in the middle of the trail kind of deal.
Then going on with day 5, we ran into, what we first thought was, the waypoints were not right or something. We had a little trouble trying to get to waypoint 3 and 4. The spur trail actually kind of goes up north of that, and we spent a fair amount of time. We ended up taking the spur trail north and then backtracking, trying to run over those waypoints. And we got to 4, and then 3 was kind of in the trees. And I finally told Dave, skip it. I'd done fell over.
Yeah,
I was tired. I already hit a couple rocks out there in that pasture and crashed. And I'm like, we're going on. Time to move on. That one waypoint is not going to kill us. So, and then day 5, that was also that was the day that we first started getting Garmin glitches. You'd actually contacted us. I think we had stopped at the 45th parallel to get our challenge point,
right?
And then my beacon was going off, and you were going, check your GPS, you're lost. And it kind of panicked us for a minute, but we went. Again, he was using the Trail Tech with nothing but your waypoints, and he went back and scrolled through, and no, we're on the money. Everything's right. So we went on. It's funny when I got back and I looked at my map share page for that day, it was a little bit off. I don't understand it. It doesn't even match what our actual units are showing. So, looking back now, I think that was the start of the hack. But and then anyway, we got into Salmon, I don't know, about 5:30, and we'd stop to get gas and get something to drink, and then rushed over to the Les Schwab dealer. And Josh, I guess, I don't know if he's the co-owner or the son.
He's co-owner at least.
He stayed late, and he could tell we were tired, and I'd actually called ahead and had him set those tires out on the back door. And when we got there, he's like, you all just need to let me change these for you, and he could tell we were tired, and we didn't argue, and he took care of us. I mean, he took the he took the wheel off the bike and
Yeah, he did it all.
and big shout out to him. We took care of him for him staying over on a Saturday night, taking care of us. So day 5.
Josh, I think his dad owns the store. I think he and his dad co-own the store, if I am understanding that correctly.
Yeah, it's a good shop. He's a good dude. He was fun to talk to the whole time too.
Yeah, no, that was.
And then day 6.
I mean, day 6 actually started out pretty good. I mean, we took that 3-man variant pretty much right out of the box there, and actually ended up being a beautiful ride. It was nice and scenic, all the overlooks, and you're kind of riding right on the edge there. But that's probably about as easy as it's going to get to pick up an extra point.
Yep.
We went into North Fork and got checked in and talked to those folks, but I'm not sure we'd probably, looking at our time schedules, I'm not sure that we would do that again. We're kind of on the fence on that one. But we did the challenge section that day also, coming down I'm not exactly sure what was the
Ditch Creek.
Yeah, Ditch Creek coming down the side.
You guys have a really good video of Ditch Creek. That your video shows it better than any other video I've seen. And you guys were going the right way too. Going down, it's way easier than going up it.
Oh, I'm not so sure I'd want to even attempt. I mean, on an unloaded bike, maybe, but loaded, going up that thing, I'm just not sure that'd be a whole lot of fun.
Those switchbacks they're way steeper than the GoPro shows.
Yeah,
that shit was steep.
Try doing it in the rain with a saw.
Yeah, no thanks. What was it, 7 miles long?
Yeah, 7 miles. I mean, it probably took us an hour. I think it time-wise was probably close to doing the nominal route, but, we might have burned up a little more energy than necessary.
For sure.
But,
and day 6 is the only day that we ran out of water. And twice because we ran out of water. We stopped at this guy's campground, asked him if he had any water, and he did. And
it was right below 3 Mile Ridge. Before we started up 3 Mile Ridge, we stopped and bummed some water.
Yeah, and we filled our Camelbacks back up, but of course by the time we got to Powder Gulch, we were back out of water again. I think our exhaust, we were definitely showing how tired we were. We were going through more water and putting out a little more energy.
Well, it was hot that day too, and you guys are on a lot of exposed ridges up there. I mean, there's not a lot of shade in a lot of places, so when the sun's out, you're going to get baked a little bit up there.
Yeah, it just
it's funny. I can't recall us ever refilling our water packs on any other day. I mean, the night of Chalice, we had ran out at the end. I remember chewing some gum, just to get a little saliva in my mouth. But that day we ran out twice. I guess maybe we were making up for not drinking enough prior.
Right.
So yeah, then we entered into the Powder Gulch. There's a few things that it wasn't an hour before Powder Gulch. We're on the Continental Divide Trail, and we're watching that video, where you were kind of tooting us up a little bit, and hell, we had problems getting our helmets on after watching that, Martin. And we dang it, you jinxed us.
So this is my fault too. That's my fault because I did not take you the way you desired to Smoky Bar Store, and not Powder Gulch is my fault.
It's nobody's fault but ours.
Yeah, we take 100% responsibility for everything. It's just, it's a tough one. I mean, when you go back and look at the GPS tracks and everything, where everything was supposed to be and where we were, we couldn't have been 150 feet from that freaking trail. I mean, it's just, we were so tired at that point that we didn't even think to walk down. You know, we walked left, right, up, but the last thing we didn't do, we didn't go down.
So you have to understand, from where we were standing, that did not look right. I mean,
yeah,
it just didn't look right. And, you know, now looking back, it's,
So let me tell everybody what happened to these poor guys. So this is a new trail that I laid out. And this trail is not without a little bit of controversy. A little background. Most of you know I wasn't able to ride very much last year. I think I rode 3 times, and all 3 times I went riding, I went and rode Powder Gulch. It's a trail that I discovered a couple years ago that is on the map, but had obviously not seen a motorcycle in 20 years or so. There had been a timber sale up there, a burn. The trail had sort of fallen into disuse. So I went up and started trying to figure out a way to sort of burn the trail back in again. Other people had the same idea. There's some locals up there that know that terrain pretty well. She would occasionally counter some trail tread. There's a road that snakes its way up there. And what happens is people would ride the road for a way, then they pop off the road, and there's some pretty cool little sections in there. So last year, when the word got out that I was going to go up there and work on that trail, all of a sudden everybody in the world's interested in it. And the last time I went up there were 3 sets of flags with trails going everywhere. So the trail that I put in for the Tour of Idaho is the one that follows the most natural terrain features. It makes use of a lot of old skid roads. It's longer. It adheres most closely to the trail that is on the map, although it's not exactly that trail, but it's closer than any of the other trails that anybody's burned in up there. But the one thing that I did do was right at the top, there was an obvious track that went right to the top of a ridge. Beautiful scenic overlook, one of my favorite of the whole tour. So what I told everybody to do is we're going to use this little spur trail. We're going to go up to this overlook. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go back down to the previous waypoints. There's a waypoint up at this overlook. You're going to go back down to the previous waypoint, and there's a trail that takes you down to another skid row that takes you into a gully, which takes you out. But once you get up on that overlook, you think that you can see a way straight down to that skid road when you're sitting up there. So unless you're really on the ball, unless you've really thought about, no, this is an out and a back up here, it would seem fairly obvious to just sort of shortcut that and go straight down to skip a waypoint. So instead of treating it like an out and a back, I think the waypoints were 23, 24, 25, and 26.
Yeah.
You're going to skip going back down to 24, and you're just going to go straight down to 25 and 26. And I think that's what you guys tried to do, is it not?
It is. And honestly, you know, again, I had made tracks. And in that area, I had, you know, I'd made the lines just in the general direction that it was supposed to go. But I'd built these daily little summary sheets of our analysis of the day. And I clearly had on there, you know, don't trust the tracks in this area. They were unverifiable. Pay attention to the waypoints. But you know, as we were going in there, our headset batteries had died. You know, now we're, you know, up to that point on the tour, I mean, we were pretty much on established trail the whole way, and the tracks were, you know, 100% up to that point. And you know, so now we're bushwhacking a little bit from waypoint to waypoint, and we're not able to communicate. You know, we're tired and we're trying to get through it. I can't see the damn numbers. So, you know, as the way it works, you know, throughout the whole tour, even though we're following tracks, I'd always be on the radio going, hey, what waypoint did we just roll over?
Right.
Hey, what waypoint did we just roll over? And, you know, trying to keep it straight in our head and keep us focused on it. And we just missed it. We missed the out and back, and we went off the steep side, and I wrecked in there. It was quite steep, and I'd wrecked in there, and Dave had to come help me get back going. And we actually ended up making it back to waypoint 25 and got on that little skid road, and we were headed to 26. And you know, today I overlaid our actual track versus what I believe is the proper route. And we turned before we got to 26. So once you got to 26, that's where the old trail is established again. There's actually a 6131 trail marker right there. There's a bunch of sawed wood that somebody's put on there. It's another one of them leftover the shoulder deals, but it's clearly, if we would have got to 26, we would have been okay. But we turned just before 26, not rolling over it, and we headed towards 27, and we were on the wrong side of the gully. And again, the pictures do not do that area justice. Where we were, it was so steep, and we were so tired, and we kept, just wasn't thinking, we're following a game trail, not a trail, and we've been bushwhacking, so that may seem wrong to some that are watching, but when you were bushwhacking from waypoint to waypoint, your thought process changes a little bit. And we didn't stop. When we got in trouble and both bikes are on the side and we're both helping each other, because now we're getting exhausted. Now we've depleted everything that we had. And I actually did get off. He was still wrestling, and I said, I'm going to follow this game trail on down here. But I was angling towards 27 or 28, whatever it was. But we were on the wrong side of the gully. And when I got down to where I got, I'm like, we can't get through here, because there was that's where the gully actually got deep. And, so we were just trying to get the bikes back to the top, and, we should have stopped. And, we actually did. That's when we reached out to you on the beacons, and, we didn't get a response. We was just looking for any help in where to look, if you will, because up to that point there really hadn't been much of a trail, and we couldn't get a hold of anybody. I don't blame Garmin, or it's nobody's damn fault but ourselves. We pushed the tap out button. 10 minutes later we get a response on our, the way that tap out button is supposed to work with Garmin is you push it, and they're supposed to text you back immediately going, what is the nature of the emergency? And you tell them, I'm okay, I just need evacuation, or I need a helicopter, I'm hurt. Well, we didn't get a response. And about 10 minutes later, we did get a response, and it said, your subscription is not valid. Your SOS did not go through. And we were there after the day 18 and riders meeting, where it was, you push the button, you sit your ass down. And, we had some debate over that, but I mean, we both got a message says this didn't go through. So we started hiking, got to the top of the mountain, thought maybe it was a reception issue, and pushed the button again. 10 minutes later, we'd already texted our wives and said, look, we're okay. We just need out of here. And, things are going to get commotion here. But again, that message didn't go through. Actually, my wife got it, I think, 4 o'clock the next morning. So anyway, the deal is they did get the message, and they did dispatch the rescue guys, and that guy came up on a motorcycle, and he was freaking happy as could be. He's like, he's not a big time motorcycle rider, and he came up Powder Gulch from the bottom on the other side, and he was pretty damn excited that he made it up that thing. So anyway, they hauled us back to the motel, and one of the guys, very, very awesome dudes. They were volunteers. That guy offered to come back up in the morning from Salmon and give us a ride, and he took us back up I don't remember which side, the Sheep Creek, the back side. Sheep Creek or Lick Creek, whatever, the side we were supposed to come down. And we were able to walk.
At Sheep Creek.
Yeah, so we walked up the Sheep Creek side the way we were supposed to exit Powder Gulch. And we already knew, as we were walking up that gulch, we knew the bikes were on the left and they weren't far. And when we got to the spot, you can see our little, I was recording that track. I wanted to understand what happened. So when we got to where the bikes were, we could see them up there.
Anybody? I don't know if you can see this map or not, but literally where the bikes were the blue line, and the trail is the red line.
Yeah.
So I'll save everybody the effort and the eyeball strain. I couldn't communicate with these guys, but I could still see where they were at. That was right at the height of the Garmin hack, so we couldn't communicate with each other. They were 35 feet from where they needed to be. 35 feet. Now, some of y'all out there are going to think this is funny. And in a more moribund kind of a way, or a morbid way would be a better way to say it, it sort of is funny, but wasn't funny to those guys. 35 feet. Had they been able to just walk 35 feet in the right direction now, which is the key, they would have run right into a trail. That's how close they were to being safe. But the terrain in that area is steep. I mean, it's like this. Photographs do not do any justice to how steep it is. And you cannot believe how thick the brush and small trees are on that hillside. You can't see squat. So 35 feet might as well be 35 miles if you don't know exactly where you're going.
Yeah, so I walked on up on the trail and, walked by the sign and then I walked right past where we had turned and, anyway, it was devastating. And, we got the bikes. We ended up taking the bike straight down the hill. I had to walk in front of him and find the clear spot because, he had to basically like bear wrestle the bike down the hill because the steepness of it. So we got the bikes down and got to the bottom of the trail and rode back to North Fork, and it was probably noon.
Yeah, about noon when we got out of there. I mean, the night before, I think we got back to the rest. Somebody was asking a question about what time we got out of there. The night the rescue guys came out, we got back to our North Fork about midnight, I think it was. So
he picked us back up at 8:30, I think, and we got the bikes out by noon, and we actually briefly talked about whether we could continue, and we could have, we'd have had to finish 50 miles of day 6, and knowing day 7, looking back, we may have made a different decision. I found out there is lodging in Elk City. We could have probably pressed to Elk City. People get to Sundance about 2 or 3 in the afternoon typically. So, we had 8 or 9, 10 hours. We could have made up some of that. But, that's stuff we've thought about since. We've thought about a lot of things since then. And, at the time, it just wasn't clear to us. And, so we called it. But I think now we've got our minds a little bit different.
So we got about 10 minutes left here, and I want to give you guys plenty of time to talk about the things that you intend to do differently in 2021 that you did in 2020. But I would be remiss if I did not ask you about the ride of shame.
Yeah, the ride of shame. Well, we talked this Martin guy into coming getting us, and we wasn't sure how that was gonna. We weren't real sure how we were gonna be welcome. So, I was trying to think of what I could. At that point, we had already decided we're coming back. We're not quitters, so we're gonna give it. This thing gets a hold of you, and I've been ate up with it. I still study these damn maps every day that I have a minute. And but when Martin pulled up, we met him. We rode the bikes 50, 60 miles, and Martin come and picked us up. And I was like, how can I break the ice? I don't want Martin to think we think it's his fault and all that. We're not that kind. We came for an adventure, and we had an adventure, and we're still having that very same adventure. So, in a way, I'd like to say I'm disappointed that we didn't make it, but we get to come back and do it again. And would we have done that if we'd not made it? I'm probably not next year anyway. But
by the way, if there had been any thought in my head that you guys were going to blame anything on me, you've been riding your own bikes all the way back to Moab. Your asses are on your own. I came to get you because everybody felt really bad about what happened. And when I told everybody, well, I think I'm going to go get those guys, they were like, yeah, go get them.
Yeah, when Martin pulls up, the first thing I asked is, if we come back next year, are we still Team Armadillo?
Like, that's right. I remember that.
He's like, yes, you are. So on the ride back, I'm glad you came and got us it. We'd already kind of picked our faults apart, and I think we did more telling you what we did wrong than you did telling us. So, I was actually glad you came and got us. And we appreciate that you took that time and did that.
Dude, it rips your guts out as much work as you do. Look, I've failed more times than I've succeeded, and it's my ride. So I completely get how devastating it is when you spend months preparing for it and you come up short. It's a kick in the balls.
To follow up on what those guys said last week, I mean, it is hard. I mean, it is physically and mentally the coolest freaking adventure I've ever done. I mean,
yeah, no, and then until you do it or do something like this, I mean, you think you're tough, you think you know what you're going to do when you're tired. You have all these ideas, but until you're put in that position, you really don't know how tough you are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, we went out too soon.
No, you didn't. You guys made a good call. I mean, it would have been tough. Had everything gone flawlessly up till North Fork, maybe it's a different decision. But you guys have kind of gotten into that little steamroller effect that we try to tell people about, where once you get in late one night, that effect starts to steamroller. Yeah. And you did the best you could with that because you still managed to get early starts the next day. But that fatigue starts to creep in. Yeah. And, I've done it both ways. I mean, I've gone till I literally could not ride anymore and had to get off the bike and just lay down, sleep, then get up the next morning and take my ride of shame back out to the highway and get a ride somewhere. I think you guys probably made the right call last year. Plus, the Tour of Idaho, like I told you in the truck, it's not going anywhere. It's going to be here every year. You get to come back. Next year's route's going to be even better than last year's route. So there you go.
Yeah, and we can only pray. We had the weather set up this year. We had the weather. So
we hope we hope we at least get something close.
Yeah. So for next year, we've done a lot of cussing and discussing of what we're going to do different. And
lighter is definitely going to be. We didn't think we were packed real heavy for this tour, and
we really weren't.
We probably really weren't. But I mean, I plan on. I would say I'm dropping 20 pounds of gear.
Bike parts.
We carried some extra parts. We probably carried too many tools. Definitely carried too many clothes. And we had food packed on us. I mean,
the truth is, the parts. You ain't got time.
Yeah, I mean, if you have much more than something, I mean, if you 30 minutes to an hour, it's going to cost you for the end of the day anyway.
Yeah, flat tires about all you have time to deal with.
Yeah, and you don't know that if you haven't done it before, you don't realize that this is about riding. If you got to work on a bike, you're probably screwed anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched that day 6 challenge section. You heard me in my insanity. Doing my ballerina high kick and then my ballerina super high kick because, we bought the another thing, we have to freaking say Martin ride again. We bought the giant loot bag. We had the Moscow moto bags, and those are top quality bags. They will last forever. You know, the ballistic nylon and all that stuff. But the giant loop bags are thinner, lighter. I mean, we weighed them. They're
I would say the giant loop bags are a pound and a half to 2 pounds lighter than the Moscow bags. So, you know, again, Moscow's great, and the giant loop stuff's going to be great, but you know, weight is a key issue. I mean, all the way down to the gear you're wearing it's important.
Well, the other thing about those giant loop bags is just the way they're shaped. You know, those Moscow Moto bags are wonderful for their intended use, which are big dual sport rides like PBR type stuff.
Yeah.
But the shape of that bag where it sticks way out like that, that's no good in tight single track, man. The nice thing about the giant loop bags is they hide behind your legs.
Yeah.
So there's nothing on that bag that's ever going to snag when you're riding.
Well, you know, we talked about that. I talked about that with you at one point. You know, you don't realize when you got that hump on the back of the seat for the bag back there, how many times you get off and on that bike, it becomes an issue.
The only hump.
We talk about that all the time, how there are things that you are never going to understand, which is why we kind of laugh when people argue with us about this stuff anymore. Oh, well, you know, I've done Baja and that wasn't a problem down there. Yeah, you didn't. Baja is not 2,000 miles with a lot of single track. You probably didn't get on and off your bike 30 times a day in Baja, maybe 30 times an hour. Even the way you get on and off your bike makes a big difference. And you're right. If you've got a set of bags, or I've seen some people like put a fuel bag or something in the back where it's like a big extra effort to throw your leg over that seat every time you do it, that one act right there will burn energy that you can't make up during the course of the 10 days that you're out there.
You know, and other things we've talked about is, you know, time management, taking breaks. You know, taking too many breaks, you don't realize what that does to you at the end of the day, because every break costs you 10, 15 minutes.
It's not the breaks as much as it's the challenge point photos. We you know, we were having fun.
Yeah, we were trying. I mean, we're having fun with it, and we don't want to take the fun out of it. But you don't realize between breaks and challenge point photos, if you take 10 or 15 minutes or 20 minutes even at every one of those breaks, by the end of the day, you're talking 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
You know, and it's you just don't realize it. That's all. You know, it's a long day, and you don't realize what that cost you.
You know, we'd do the tour, the required upload to the tour page. You know, if we had service, but I was also uploading to my own personal accounts, and that you know, that takes a while. You know, typing all that crap out and trying to. You know, that stuff's going to stop. We'll do the tour page because, you know, that's part of the tour and part of the, you know, the addiction for us that are watching. But you know, the personal posts, they're going to wait till we're at the hotel, because we're going to get to the hotel earlier, we hope, or we have a little time to do that.
And somebody's asking about what bikes we were riding. I was riding a KTM 500 EXC, and he was on a Yamaha 250
FX. Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, we got a couple minutes left. Closing remarks.
Yeah, we're going to spend less on each thing. We're going to make sure we get that early start, and you know, it's important to shorten our days. So, you know, anybody looking forward to doing this, I think you should go for it. It is. Like I said, we're ate up with it. We're excited to get to come do it again. Whether we make it or not, you know, it's another adventure, and we can't wait. You know, I've encouraged everybody, you know, down here to go give it a shot. Most of them are smarter than we are, and they don't want no part of it, but but they don't know what they're missing either. I mean, it really is awesome, and you know. It's an awesome thing.
Yeah, and I'd say anybody listening that's looking to do it, listen to the people talking about when to change a tire, when to do this or when to do that.
You know,
do that.
And this hot stove league, man, we didn't get none of this. We didn't get to hear from the people who failed. You better listen, because there's some good stuff coming right now.
Yeah, if you pay attention, you'll pick up on it.
Thanks for saying that. It's pretty funny because there's two things in the world that everybody that rides motorcycles knows: their own name and how to do the Tour of Idaho better than everybody that's already done it.
Yeah.
And the one thing that the group has gotten big enough now that it's not just me saying this anymore. So I have lots of help. You know, we have luminaries that have done the tour now, professional riders, people that everybody knows. That makes it a little bit easier to spread the message. Somebody just remarked about Jimmy Lewis's video, which is full of good information. But it's remarkable to me how people who really don't understand any of this type of riding come in and again, it's like, well, everything you guys know is wrong. I did this, and it's always worked fine for me. Typically, they don't even make it to Pocatello. They get clocked somewhere along the way in day one. And then they just gripe endlessly about how they got sandbagged and, you know, the information we got was wrong and the nav was bad. The reason that we spend all winter long, you had better things to do tonight than this. I had better things to do. The reason we spend all winter doing this, and people appear on this show, is once you get into this and you figure out what it is, adventure of a lifetime kind of a deal. Not only do you want to experience it for yourself, but you start to take real personally. You get invested in other people's success. You know how hard people worked out there, and nobody likes seeing anybody fail. So please listen to these guys and everybody else. The people that are talking to you saying, look, despite what you may think, it works like this, this, and this. This is really important. I'm telling you this. Armadillo is telling you this, not because we think we're better than you. It's because we've been there, and we really want you to succeed once you get there. That's the whole point behind all of this.
It's awesome. Awesome adventure.
All right. Hey, thank you very much for making an appearance tonight. I really appreciate it. Again, I think that what you had to say is one of the most important messages that anybody could get out of Hot Stove League this year. You and I have already talked about your trip next year. You guys will be staying at luxurious Shea Hackworth, the Disco Inferno out back when you get to Pocatello. And I'll make sure I have plenty of this on tap for you when you guys get it. All right, fellas. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Hope it was good.
All right. All right. In closing, next week I'm going to have a couple of our industry friends with us. The one person I've confirmed already is Alex Martins with Conflict Motorsports. I wanted to have him on early in the year because Alex offers a deal for Tour of Idaho people. And suspension on your motorcycle is one thing you should absolutely be thinking about right now. If you intend to show up on the Tour of Idaho with suspension that you've never messed with at all on your motorcycle, I can almost guarantee that's not going to work out as well for you as it could. So Alex is going to talk to you next week about suspension, which I think is important. And we may have another guest as well, but I know Alex will be here because I've already confirmed with him. So thanks a lot for spending your time with us. We'll see you all next week. Thank you guys down in Texas. I may come to Galveston Island over the winter, so if I do, I'll stop by.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
Take care, fellas. Bye, everybody.